John from Brooklyn.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Northeast Professional Sports. I don't know if that's John Cougar or John Cougar Mellencamp, or I don't know what his name is anymore. But that was a great song from a great time. I remember doing some club hopping back then in the 90s when I was in the service. John Cougar with Authority. How you all doing tonight? This is Northeast Streaming Sports. I'm your host, Mac, with my co-host tonight. We got another one coming in later. This is Gene, the NFL genius, coming over from let me see if I get it right. Wire to Wire. Is that right, Gene? That's all right. So a network, and just not just starting, but just starting to grab the bull by the horns and getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And we're glad to have him in with us today. Also, the Philly sports guy below me, Pags, with NESSP at noon. They call it Coast to Coast, where he has him, Bo, and Jay McLovin over there with him. And of course, Sonia. I'm not sure what the name of her show is still. I know there's Prim and Proper. There's All Things Football. There's a lot of things going on. She's a woman of many names is what she is. I think she's hiding from somebody, really, folks. I'm not sure.
Sonia of the world. Sonia of the world. That's what she is.
Maybe that's the new name we should just call the show Sonia. Maybe that would do it. I'm not sure. So, yeah,
thanks, guy.
No problem. So glad to have you all on. Glad for you all to be over here viewing us already, liking us already, just like you should be doing every night at Northeast Professional Sports. And folks, college football has gone through a lot of changes over the year. I remember way back when there really wasn't a national championship, right? I mean, they would decide who was the number one based off, the bowl appearances and who the computer thought was number one. Then they said, we ain't doing the computer no more. Let's do the coaches and have a coaches poll. And people got mad about that. Maybe we should go back to the computer. No, let's have a championship. So we had 4 teams in the championship. Now we're up to 12 guys, 12 teams, 5 division winners and 7 others. Now, I haven't had time today to get into the 7 others. I know independence programs are not in a conference. So like Notre Dame and some of the other ones, I think Army's an independent. I'm not sure if they get in with the 7 or it's a best record, or I think SEC.
No. I can speak about this.
Go ahead.
Because I did my research on this. Right. So it's going to be the 5 main conferences. It would have been 6, but the Pac-12 or 10 is going to dissolve. So it's going to be the 5. It's going to be the 5 major conference winners, and then it's going to be an at-large 7. So It could mean anybody it could be 5 from one conference because we think that those 5 are the best, or it could be the undefeated team in the MAC, Atlantic, Pacific, we don't care league. If you're undefeated in that league, you're going to be able to come in. Like, they did this in a way that makes a lot of sense, making it 12 and not 8.
Right.
Because ultimately, you still feel that 8 is going to come from the major conferences. And you don't want that. They were screwed without having Georgia in this Final Four.
I think you're a little off on the conferences, though. I'm pretty sure it's the 4 major conferences that should have been, and the 5th one is the Pac-12. So they're actually keeping a Pac-12 conference. It's Big 10, ACC, SEC, Big 12, and then Pac-12, which I didn't think
they don't know what the Pac-12 is going to turn into because the Pac-12 is dissolving because Washington's going to go somewhere else, and
it should be a 4 and 8 instead of a 5 and 7. That's the only thing I have.
No, but I think right now they have it at 5 because they do have. It's the SEC.
They have it at 5 and 7 for right now.
Yeah, they do have it at SEC. They have the Big 10, the Big 12, the whatever the. I guess it's the MAC.
Yeah, it's my conference.
See.
There's no MAC teams going to make
And
the
then
bowl.
the ACC. The ACC.
Okay. All right. So, but still, you're saying that there is going to be some kind of committee saying who's better than the other teams, right? So that's
Yeah,
still
but
going
it's
to be
going to
part
come
of it.
down to it really is going to come down to the 12th and the 13th team. When you start to argue about those two teams, who's the best 12th team in comparison to the best 13th team? Now, if somebody in a rural conference, and I say because there's a number of rural conference that we don't even talk about that goes undefeated, they're going to be able to be in this. Because anybody who's not in a rural conference right now is going to be in Division Two.
Okay. All right.
Division Two has a playoff already.
Yes,
That's
they do.
why. That's why North Dakota State and South Dakota State universities play against each other, and Montana plays against each other because they don't have the personnel to be able to compete in a Division One school. You have Washington, you have Oregon. Those state schools are going to be able to compete. But when you have California, when you start to have USC, anybody who's in a conference, that Pac-12 was the problem because they didn't have defense. They always had offense. You were going to win by offensive games and not defensive games.
So let me ask this, guys. So we're still going to have whether it's the 12th and 13th or the 10th through the 12th or whatever the decision is, because I imagine there's going to be a few teams that are maybe 4 or 5 teams fighting for 10th through 12. Just say, right? So as an independent school, Notre Dame, I don't think will have a problem because Notre Dame schedule will be Notre Dame schedule. They'll play some of the top teams anyway. They always do that. But some of the other independents or the schools and the schools that are not in Division II that may have a undefeated year or have one loss or have a great team, this is still where there's going to be some problems. I think is what I'm gathering.
If Army goes or Navy, actually better yet, if Navy goes 10-2 in any league, like if they go 10-2, somehow, some way, they should maybe get in the top 12. Because if Navy goes 10-2 against whoever they're playing, because they're playing independent, same way Notre Dame is.
Yeah. It'll be the top 5. It'll be a conference champion from the Power Fives, each conference champion, and then the best 7 teams, no matter what conference they're in, rankings wise. And that will be where the decision and the committee will come in to decide the best 7 teams that are ranked. It could be anyone if they think they're good enough. You're going to
have and it's going to wind up being a conversation like between like Penn State, Purdue, LSU, when you start having those 2-loss seasons.
Yeah, they came up with this because a lot of the higher ranked teams were snubbed for all intensive purposes. Like UGA was one of them, and basically having these teams that have really good records and still missing the playoffs was the issue that came about. And this is the reason why the CFP revisited everything and they're revamping it to make sure that everyone with those basically stellar good records can be in the playoffs. Because to me, it's really ridiculous when you're in week 4 and 5. And you only have lost one game, and they're like, "Oh no, that's the game they needed to win," so they're out. Like what? It's like only week. It was just so mystical to me. So hopefully this will bring some resolve.
Georgia losing this season to Alabama in the championship game, and them not being in the top 4 is what caused this.
Yes,
because
when they played the Florida,
Georgia would have won this.
They called it the Snub Bowl because you remember, Mac, we talked about it. Most of the team didn't even dress out on the Florida side because they felt like, they were standing united or whatever they tried to say because they were going to declare for the draft. But we know it was because they called it the Snub Bowl. But Kirby Smart and his guys, they showed up, Yeah,
I know Florida State did in fact they hurt their own team if you want me to be honest about what they ended up doing. But they did not play because they did not get into the Final Four there. I do remember us talking about that. So, I mean, I guess it's better than it was. I mean, a lot of people say let's just forget all that and go back to to having the bowls and let the committee decide who they think is best team in the league. I don't know. I mean, to me, college football definitely is not the same as it was back when I watched it, and when the bowls were, where things were decided. And I don't know. I don't know if it's going to make any difference or not. I guess people want winners today, right? People want winners more than they want, hey, we had a great team. We did a good job. We made it to the Orange Bowl and we won. They rather, I'm national champion. And again, I don't know if this really solves the problem because, Georgia, we all talked about Georgia, Florida State's quarterback got hurt and they probably wouldn't have won it anyway. Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. You don't know unless they really play. So I don't know if it makes it better, but it will make people happier. How's that?
This isn't March Madness. You can't do March Madness with football.
But it gives you six
that's
more
really
relevant.
what it comes down to.
It gives you 6 more relevant games in college football in which opt-outs won't be opting out because it'll be playoffs. Like the bowls have been ruined, right? Opt-outs have ruined bowl games because kids are going to the NFL draft and they don't need to play in the Pinstripe Bowl in New York City because they don't care. They're going to get drafted. So no one, these bowl games that didn't matter to anything except the schools lining their pockets, they now matter. And what it's given college football is it gives them 6 more relevant football games to see top tier talent. And if you're team 13, do you really have a claim to the national championship? I don't think you do. Team 5 might have. This year you had 3 undefeated teams. You had 2 teams that were 1 losses that were really close to being able to make the college football playoff, like Georgia just losing in the SEC championship game. Being able to have a claim to number 1 and winning the national championship at 13 with 3 losses or 2 losses isn't really a thing. You can't do that when you're going up against an undefeated program or a team with 1 loss.
Right. But but doesn't it come down to what division you're in? I mean, isn't that still going to be the thing? I mean, if you're in the SEC, it's going to be harder to play in the SEC than it is in the ACC. So even though they got a better record in the ACC, that does not mean that they're going to be able to compete against the SEC teams that maybe don't make the playoffs. So see, I understand what you're saying, Gene, and Pax. Thanks for discussing and bringing out all the points. I still don't see how that really gives you the best teams because the schedules they're playing some are totally different. And if they're undefeated and SEC team has 2 losses, but they play in SEC, they might be able to beat them still. So, I mean,
it's almost...
Go ahead, Sonia.
No, go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead.
It's almost like they're paralleling it with the NFL schedule because you think about it. In each division, you got to win out in your division to claim that division to get into the playoffs. So if you look at it from that perspective, now that we're breaking it down, I kind of get the clarity on it because in the SEC, it's a very competitive division. To get to the top of that division, you got to beat everyone in that division or close to it to win out to go into the championship, if you look at it from that perspective.
I think of it this way. I think that the SEC and the Big Ten, I would rather have all 12 playoff teams coming from those 2 conferences. I don't care about the rest of the conferences at all. USC, Oregon, they're moving to the Big Ten. Oklahoma, Texas, they're moving to the SEC. Those conferences are loaded with talent. All the top teams in the country are playing in 2 conferences. And then you have your outliers like Notre Dame, maybe Florida State. But like in reality, I want to see a Big Ten versus SEC showdown. That's what everybody like. I don't want to see what happened last year. Georgia beating up on TCU 63-7. Like, I don't want to watch that. I want to watch what happened this year. Alabama, Washington. I want to watch Michigan versus Alabama. And that was a great football game. Give me those games. Give me top tier games. I don't want TCU in my bowl game.
And I agree with that. And I think that's what 12 does.
Yeah.
Short of going 14 and giving the 1 and 2 seed whoever seems to be the number 1 and the number 2 seed a bye week, which I think helps the other teams anyways. You can only do 12 or 14. I think that, yes, I like the idea of an undefeated in the MAC-12. If they can be the one, or like the MAC, the MAC Pacific, whatever it is. If Hawaii went 12-0 one year, I want them in this. I want them to play because I want to see, all right, are they good enough to break these teams that are pro teams? Because that's what it's becoming now. These are pro team, like they're the ones that everybody's drafting from.
It's just a step below the pros. I know exactly what you're saying, Bags. So I mean, listen, I think it's exciting. I really do. I think it's gonna add a lot of more excitement to the end of the season for sure, having 12 teams in it. So let's talk about a couple bad things that's happened, and it seems like it's happened too much in our society today. 2 adults were arrested in the Super Bowl parade there. Lydell Mays and Dominic Miller, 2 adults, are charged with second-degree murder and, of course, a bunch of other charges that come with that catastrophe that happened over there. The 2 teens that were arrested are right now being charged as minors, so we don't know who they are. That might be upgraded to adults. I guess they were staring meanly at each other, and that's what broke out this whole thing that happened. We've discussed this at length. I just hope whoever did this gets punished with the full extent of the law, and that I don't know how you prevent it, guys. I really don't, because it can happen anywhere at any time, and it doesn't take much anymore for that to happen. Fighting with your fists has kind of gone by the wayside, where people are using weapons now. It's just a sad thing. And there's another story about an LSU running back, Trey Holly, I think is his name. He's maintaining his innocence. He's charged with attempted murder with 2 other people, an LSU running back, and a guy was shot in the leg, and a woman was shot 3 times. And you seem to get a lot of young guys get in trouble, college guys going into the pros, or I don't know if it's because of their popularity. But, Gene, I don't think we ever discussed this with you. I've discussed it on my show a lot. I think what happens is that you want to stay part of the neighborhood when you're not part of the neighborhood anymore. You're scared of letting go of those friends that you had when you were a kid, and those people kind of drag you back in, and you let them drag you back in because you don't want to take. I don't know if you're scared to take the step, or you feel bad about taking a step and leaving your friends behind, but it happens a lot where a guy gets a nice contract, gets set up, gets a little fame, and his friends from the hood back when kind of tag along. And it's happened to a few players. I want to get your thoughts on that, Gene.
So, all right. This is a deeper question than I expected tonight, but that's all right. So here's the nice way to put it, Mac. I've been involved in situations where I was from and where I moved to. I had to cut people off in my life. And I don't know if I could have made that decision at 19, 20. The culture based when you're growing up in an inner city. I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up in North Philadelphia and moved to Northeast. And after Northeast, I moved out to Montgomery County. So growing up where I grew up, it was, you can't turn your back on the people that you grew up with. These are the people that you rode bikes with, or people that you hung out with every day. So like, if I ever made it or struck it big, I would want to bring my friends with me, my friends, the people that were there for me my entire life. Now, what ends up happening in a lot of these circumstances is these kids are growing up in these environments in which there's not the greatest climate, right? They're not getting, there's a lot of crime happening in the area. The schooling systems need to be fixed completely. There's 36 kids to a school as opposed to 12 or 14, which should be a state requirement that you shouldn't have more than 15 kids in a classroom. A lot of that stuff happens, and you're going to school with these kids. You're growing up with them. You start making millions of dollars. You want to bring them with you. You want to bring them out of the troubles and the issues that they've had in their life. And those guys don't know how to act right. They don't have it. They weren't trained that way. They weren't built that way. And a lot of these kids that are growing up in these circumstances, they just really have poor circumstances surrounding them as far as their education goes. And they make a lot of really dumb choices. I had to cut off a lot of people in my life, but it took me till I was 25, 26 years old to understand what that was doing to my mental health or what that was doing to my career. And I just can't blame 18, 19-year-olds for not making the decision to cut off friends or people that been around them. Now, the shooting that happened in Kansas City, I just don't understand what you have to go to a Super Bowl celebration parade and bring your gun with you. Like, why is that thought cross your mind? Well, I might get in an argument and I need to shoot somebody at a parade with millions of people there. I just can't understand that logic. It was a celebration of your team winning the championship. Why is there any anger there?
Yeah. Like I said, good evening, CJ. CJ from Whippins Hot Mission Breaks. The painkiller he calls himself. He's got the coolest nickname on the show, and that's why I let him come on. It has nothing to do with his knowledge at all. It's just the painkiller is why I have him in. So CJ, you came in at our serious moment. We were kind of talking about college football in a new format. Then I don't know if you're from New York, the city of New York. I'm from Windsor, Hartford, which is semi-city, but Byron Williams has talked about this a lot. When you go to sports, organized sports, and you start moving up the chain, there's got to be mentors there. And a lot of time there's not, right? They're the best players in high school. They're kind of cradled and celebrated. Then they go to college, and the college, throws a party for them, and they have the band out for them, and they're big shots. And they don't have a mentor or an older guy or a captain or whatever that kind of takes them to the side and says, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen. You're coming here from, from some city. It doesn't have to be Philadelphia. It could be any city. And you're coming from where this is not reality. This is your new reality. And you're going to have to break ties with some of your friends, and you're going to feel terrible about it, and they're going to give you a hard time about it. But guess what? They're going to bring you down. And a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot because a lot means more than not, but a few times it ends up hurting the kid. It puts you in a position that you're in a position you shouldn't be in with your friends, and you might have a shot at professional football or professional basketball or whatever. CJ.
Yeah, I completely agree. I actually caught the tail end of the comments that were made. And, one of the things about it really is that for that particular athlete, for that particular student athlete, being able to now progress to another level, I 100% agree with you that there really is not mentorship in place anymore because everyone wants to do things their own way. Where you hear about the pirate way, you hear about the patriot way, you hear about the this way, you hear about the that way. Every team has their own way that they want to do things. Now, in relation to the student athlete, yeah, I 100% agree. You're going to have to make some tough decisions, and there are probably some people within your circle of friends that you're going to end up leaving behind. Why? Because there's stuff that you need to take care of. You need to start thinking about your future if professional basketball or professional football is going to be your future. You're also going to start needing to think about your mental health as well. Because if you're talking about the kids that are coming up from the hood, and I put that in quotes, all right, a lot of them are coming up from or trying to get out of there. They're looking for sports as an avenue to get out because it's either that or they're going to end up being indoctrinated in one of the gangs because that's the only way they're going to be able to survive. So they see sports as a way out. But in other places, now mind you, I grew up in a small city. I grew up in Bronx Neck, New York, in the East Bronx. Okay. We had guys that were fortunate enough to be able to get basketball scholarships, hockey scholarships, to be able to go to college and be able to play. Whether or not they made the pros or not, who knows? But they cared so much about their craft. They cared so much about the game that they did whatever it took to get to the next level. There's not that kind of commitment anymore. Now it's, I'm going to put all this work in, but I want to take everybody with me. But sometimes the people that you want to take with you, sometimes those one or two people that you want to take with you because you think if you take them out, that you put them in a better environment, that they're going to change and they're going to see things. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah,
sad.
it's
It really
a shame.
is.
It really is a shame. I played with a couple guys that went on to the pros from my high school, but we really didn't have a city there, and it was a pretty close community, and you know, nobody had problems with them pushing on or wanting to ride anybody's shirt tails. It matters a lot where you live and where you are when you're playing high school sports. So let's get into football and the sports, and enough about the bad things that are happening. I want to talk a little bit about free agency. And you know, two players for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming up on free agency. Their quarterback Baker Mayfield, and also Evans, their great wide receiver. Now, Baker Mayfield had a good year for Baker Mayfield last year. He's had a couple good years being a professional quarterback. He had a real good year in Cleveland, where we went to the playoffs last year in Tampa Bay. He kind of did his thing out there. He's not a franchise quarterback by any means, but he is a good, strong quarterback, a good starting quarterback. And of course, you know, Evans is one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. I think he goes to the Hall of Fame, no questions asked, with the amount of yards and seasons per seasons he's had. So Baker wants to get fair market value or market value. Does that mean, guys, that he wants 25, 30 million a year? Is that what Baker Mayfield, you think, is looking for to stay with the Tampa Bay, or when he gets picked up by another team, whichever they decide to do? Is Baker Mayfield worth $30 million a year? What do you think, Pax?
I got him at 35. I'll be honest. I think at $35 million a year is about where a quarterback of his stature should be at. You know, he's not Patrick Mahomes, who's making 45, you know, and decides to come down on his own to be able to get everybody else signed the way he wants them to. You know, Daniel Jones is making what, $40 million a year? I mean, I think 35 million right now is the right number for a quarterback. Can that quarterback lead you? Well, you need other pieces around that quarterback to be able to do it. Mike Evans is another one. So if you paid Mike Evans 15 and 30 and Baker 35, that makes 50 million. Well, now you've got 200 million to figure out the rest of the team. And I think that makes sense.
So, Sonia, Mike Evans wants a big payday. That's what he's looking for. But he also wants to be on, of course, a team that has a shot at the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't know if that both of those things will work out for him. Again, he's older right now. He's getting, you know, he's in his 30s. I'm not sure what his exact age is, but he's still very performing at a high level. If he got with a Patrick Mahomes or one of the great quarterbacks, he'd probably have a great year. But I don't know if they're going to pay him top dollar. So if you're Mike Evans' agent and you have a shot to go to a Super Bowl contending team and not make the money he wants to make, I imagine you're going to say, "Hey, Mike, let's come down on the asking price and go win a Super Bowl," right?
Yeah, of course. And I was actually listening to that. I'm not sure if everyone knows, but Mike Evans is being sought out by the Panthers because of his relationship with some other, no, seriously, with some other people there.
I don't know. Every time you say Carolina Panthers,
Mac, you never let me
laugh every time you say, go ahead, sorry, go ahead. Go.
Anyway, he's being sought. I have a straight face. He's being sought out by the Panthers for relationships he has there. But I need to back up for just a moment. Baker Mayfield, even though he's getting his contract, he's actually expressed his interest in keeping Mike Evans on with Tampa Bay. He's almost kind of made it like a conditional clause of being there because he wants to play with him. I really don't think that Tampa is going to be back in the postseason next year, maybe just beyond the wild card, if that, because there's other teams that are out there that were just as competitive. Mike Evans, he definitely needs to lower his asking price. Probably try to go somewhere with like the Chiefs or one of the playoff teams that we saw this year who were formidable. Even if he wants to stay in Florida and take his chances with Miami to go down there and help out Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa, he may be able to stay down in the sunny state and obtain it that way. But I honestly don't think that Tampa will bring Mike Evans back. He's been there for a little bit. Chris Godwin and that whole thing. I think this is one of the seasons that we kind of see them do some separation so that they can try to get themselves further next year, especially when you look at the NFC South and the fact that Justin Fields now is unfollowing the Bears and is following the Falcons, and Atlanta's kind of one quarterback away from claiming the NFC South. So Tampa's going to pay attention to that, and they're going to make decisions accordingly.
She has a point, though. Dave Canales is the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, and he has a relationship with Mike Evans. And I will say this, the Mike Evans to Carolina movement is not a bad thought process. You need to get Bryce Young a number one wide receiver, and the Panthers in a much better cap situation. So if Mike Evans wants to get paid and work with a coach that he's familiar with, that's not a bad thought process. I think Baker goes back to Tampa Bay. I don't think Mike Evans goes back to Tampa Bay.
Right.
I think Baker ends up signing a 3-year, $90 million contract, third year being an option of the club. It allows him to get paid a good $60 million guaranteed, where where they can get out of it in the third year and they're not hamstringing themselves. The Buccaneers, as bad as the team looks, they look decent. They won a playoff game this year. They don't have a lot of cap space in the future. They're sitting at the bottom 12 teams in the league in overall cap space without their quarterback or their number one wide receiver signed. So I don't think that they can afford Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans wants to either A, get paid, and if he doesn't get paid, he's going to want to go to a winning situation. I don't think Tampa Bay can offer either.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I as I think about all of this stuff and everything that you guys said, I still think Mike Evans goes to Atlanta, where they wind up getting some unique quarterback one way or another, and they go there, and because they have the rest of the pieces, they don't have to do too much to the defense. Him and the right quarterback, along with the tight end and the offensive line that they have, could actually do a lot for Atlanta.
Hags,
And that's where I think he winds up going.
In October, I predicted Justin Fields would be the Atlanta Falcons' next quarterback. I've been predicting this since October. I think Justin Fields goes to Atlanta, and I don't think he costs as much as people think he's going to cost. I think he goes down to Atlanta. I think Atlanta has their quarterback, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London.
Powerhouse. You're right.
I think that team is the best team in the NFC South for years to come if they pull that deal off.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a black sheep in this.
Russ,
Mitch Trubisky.
I
know. You know what?
Just released.
That's okay. That's
Just
okay.
released.
That's okay. I understand.
Too many good
Mitch
free agent
go?
quarterbacks.
Wait a second. If you're going to say Mitch Trubisky, then you need to also make a case for Gardner Minshew too. Then.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying a black sheep, like a dark horse. A dark horse is better what I'm talking about rather than a black sheep.
You're saying
like
that
that.
Mitch would come to
Yeah,
Atlanta?
like I'm not talking about somebody who's out there who is already the guy. I'm talking about somebody who could possibly fill in an area where you weren't expecting and show up much bigger than he really is.
See, I think
Are you talking about for Atlanta?
He's the other guy.
Are you talking about for Atlanta?
Uh-huh.
No, so let me be clear. Atlanta is not going to settle for another B quarterback for all intents and purposes. They've already tried that with Desmond.
I think they're going to draft one.
They've already tried that with Taylor Heineke, and so Gardner Minshew or Mitchell Trubisky, they are for all intents and purposes at this point B quarterbacks. They're not. They're going to be looking for someone like Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson or like I said, Justin Fields.
So let's get
I
into
wouldn't
it
trust
then.
Russell Wilson with a 10-foot pole.
With the quarterbacks you talked about, because really to me, I mean, we're talking like starting quarterbacks now. I'm not going to go to to side B. I'm going to stay on side A right now, right? Baker Mayfield, starting quarterback. Russell Wilson, starting quarterback. Justin Fields, starting quarterback, Kirk Cousins starting quarterback. All these guys are a little bit different in their own way and at different points in their career. So I think if somebody like Kirk Cousins has to go to a team that's almost there to make the playoffs and maybe make a push, right? I mean, I don't know if he leaves the Vikings. I think Vikings and him are still a good fit. Before he got hurt, he was having a great year. But it's going to be tough in the North this year. I think, you know, you got Green Bay and Detroit. I think both are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, in my opinion, anyway. So Minnesota, that's going to be a tough place for him to go and maybe get to a Super Bowl if he wants. Everybody wants to get to a Super Bowl. And I think he's good enough to get to a Super Bowl. To win a Super Bowl, I don't know. But I think he's good enough to get to a Super Bowl. Justin Fields has to go to, I think, a rebuilding team like in Atlanta, like the Washington Commanders, a team like that where he can grow with the team, and then, you know, a couple years down the road, maybe he can do something.
Mac, yes. I got a ridiculous prediction for you. I don't think Atlanta is rebuilding at all. I think if Justin Fields goes to Atlanta Falcons might win the Super Bowl, and I don't care how weird that sounds. Well, follow me.
I don't think Justin Fields is that good.
Hold on.
A lot of people are saying that.
And I think you're wrong, and that's okay. He threw 6 touchdown passes versus Clemson. You threw a defensive coordinator from the Indianapolis Colts and made that man his head coach, gave him no receivers until last year, and you expected this man to be a good quarterback? Justin Fields was elite at Ohio State. And you add Bijan Robinson, a defensive head coach, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. That's more weapons than he's seen in Ohio State. I think you add Raheem Morris's defense to an offense that could be that explosive playing on carpet. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but they could. They in my opinion, they would be the 4th best team in the NFC overnight.
You know, I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I always have been. I think he's a tremendous athlete, and when he's healthy, big word, when he's healthy, he can throw the ball. He can sling the rock pretty good. I mean, he's still got a lot to learn, Gene. He's in those 3 years, he hasn't played a full 3 years over there. Far from it. He's still a young quarterback. I think his youth hurts him right now. He's got to have a really good quarterback coach. They still got to develop him. You can give a guy all the weapons you want. He's still got to play the quarterback position. And you know, he's a great athlete. I'm not saying Atlanta's not going to be better. Super Bowl's a stretch for me, especially this year. A couple of years, maybe 3 years down the road, maybe so. And again, big if. Can he stay healthy? He likes to run with the ball. Running quarterbacks get hurt. They always do.
The only reason he ran with the football so much is because he had the worst offensive line in football. Chicago's offensive line is terrible. And
I'm
the
not
Falcons
disagreeing. But let me tell you something. He depends on that run, like Josh Allen, like Lamar Jackson. And what happens is they depend on the run too much, and they stop throwing the ball like they should be in certain circumstances.
He didn't at Ohio State when he had an offensive line. Everyone thought he was a running quarterback when he came out. He wasn't. Oh, you look at his Ohio State stats. He did not run the ball nearly at all.
Gene, college and professional football, 2 different animals, my friend.
Normally, quarterbacks run more in college.
No, I just listen. I'm a big Justin Fields fan. I was winning a lot with Chicago, betting on Chicago, especially as underdogs, and I won most of those bets. I'm just telling you, I don't think next year is not going to be a season that he's going to all of a sudden become a great quarterback. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Falcons are built to go to the Super Bowl yet. In my opinion, anyway. I don't think so. But
I know it's a bold prediction. I get it.
Yes. It's very bold prediction. So anyway, Russell Wilson again. Does he play next year? That's a big question. He's got $39 million in his pocket. We'll find out if he really wants to play. CJ, Russell Wilson was one of those quarterbacks that has gone and won a Super Bowl, been to 2 Super Bowls. He was on the fast track to go to the Hall of Fame. He's kind of hurt his chances as he continues playing here. But there have been a couple quarterbacks that have gone on to win Super Bowls later in their career. Of course, Brady, Peyton Manning. You can go all the way back to Jim Plunkett. These were quarterbacks that were good quarterbacks, and they had a shot. Can Russell Wilson, on a decent team, a good team, decent will work. A good team, can he go back to the Super Bowl again?
If Russell Wilson can keep his ego in check and actually shut up and take advice from his coaches, and be a team guy instead of a me guy, then yes. Until he does that, no. It doesn't matter how much talent
if he wasn't Russell Wilson, he could possibly go back, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
But
There you go.
here's the Russell Wilson that I want to see. I want to see the Russell Wilson early in his career when he was very humble, he was very appreciative, he was a team guy, and then all of a sudden, when his britches started getting too big for him, okay, then all of a sudden it's Russ Danger time. It's Russ Wilson time.
Dangerous.
Dude, shut up. Shut up and play the position. You are a professional. Stop acting like a jackass. You make more money than probably people like me will ever see in our entire lifetime. And you know what? The NFL, not for long, right? Take advantage of the God-given talent that you've been blessed with and just don't be a jackass.
Isn't Russ the perfect perfect example of the grass isn't always greener on the other side? The guy was in Seattle,
my friend.
The guy was in Seattle. They were catering to him. They were getting him anything they could do for him. He was holding him hostage. You're going to draft me an offensive lineman or this. You're going to draft me this or this. He went over to Denver into a situation with a very miserable head coach, Nathaniel Hackett. And now you're in a situation with Sean Payton where the core
verbal abuse on the sideline from Sean Payton.
Where the coach is not married to the quarterback. And when the coach is not married to the quarterback, you are going to see situations like you've seen in Denver this past year.
I have no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. So let's kind of jump on baseball. A little baseball news: the Olympics, the 2028 Olympics. They're trying to schedule it so that the Major League Baseball players could play in it. It would be around the All-Star break. It's 5 or 6 days around the All-Star break. They might have to cancel the All-Star game. I don't think they'll do that, but they might have to cancel the All-Star game so they can participate in the Olympics. I guess that's all they would need. And there's also talk of bringing it from 162 games to 158 games. This would need league approval by the union, but they have a hard time going to the baseball classic, right? The owners are worried about people getting hurt. Will the owners allow these Major League Baseball players to go play in the Olympics with the chances of getting hurt and not be able to finish up the season? What do you think, Sonia?
I don't think so at all, because you got to think about it. They have contracts with these respective teams, and unless they are willing to put in the contract itself the little line that, forbid that you're participating in some national game like the Olympics, then you're pretty much void from playing anywhere else. I don't think they'll do that. You could definitely have injuries. It's not likely. We don't see a whole lot of injuries in baseball, but it's just that per chance that, that could occur. And it's so weird because we're seeing the overlapping of sports across the board, not like how we see one season end and another one begin. But you look at the All-Star game we just had with the NBA, that is like they just have so many different layers of it that it's just not the same. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if they're already talking about shortening the MLB season for the Olympics, I don't know. I just don't think that would ever happen. And I would wonder who they're going to get to actually play in the Olympics, because you can't get the great of the greats from each team if you're worried about them getting hurt. If they do allow them to play, you'd have to probably get, your bench warmers out there just to represent the team. And that's really not the best of the best at that point.
Well, I know Gene and Pags are got to go in a minute. Let Gene have a whack at the Pags, and then we'll go to CJ. Go ahead, Gene. What do you think?
So I actually think it would be a great idea for professional baseball to allow them to play in the Olympics, because right now professional baseball is the worst marketed sport out of the major sports. They do a terrible job of marketing their superstars. And I don't think it's all on professional baseball's fault. I think that some of their best players are hermits and they just don't like being marketed. Mike Trout being one of them, Shohei Ohtani, who won't tell you if he has an animal or a child. Like, it's kind of odd how a lot of these players don't market themselves. So Major League Baseball needs to market themselves better. And listen, the World Baseball Classic final between the United States and Japan got a 48.7 rating, the television rating. It was actually better than everything except 3 games in the World Series. And I need you to understand how important that is for professional baseball on a grander scale. You have to be able to market your sport better. They do a very poor job of doing it already. And sometimes you got to worry about injuries. The New York Mets really upset about the injuries with K-Rod, but you're going to have to deal with that if you want to market your sport properly. Thanks for having me on. I apologize.
Right,
I got to come out.
No problem. Thanks for stopping in, Gene. Have a good one.
Take care.
And Pags, I think you were agreeing with what he was saying. He's
100%.
right about the, yeah.
100%. I feel that they should absolutely stop the baseball season for 2 weeks. Who cares? I mean, realistically, these games start to drone on. The dog days of summer are called that because nobody cares about them. That's like, okay, it's when the attendance is at its lowest. It's when everybody else is on vacation and they're listening to it on the radio. Do those weeks, I tell you, that's when they should have the World Classic. They should have a couple of weeks. Give these guys a rest. Bring it back to 152 or 156, actually. Yes, take away 6 games. I can't stand the fact that they've gone, every team's going to play each other now and blah, blah, blah. Bring it back like old school a little bit. Bring it less games. Allow these guys to play for their countries and have a World Classic every year for a couple of weeks, similar to the MLS does and things like that. Yes, people are going to get hurt, and sometimes those are part of the deals that you're dealing with. But
listen, I know the players had a blast. They loved it. In fact, they had more fun than they did. They said they had more fun than they do in MLB, and it kind of carried over. They started doing that
exactly.
Yeah.
Because you get pride back. You have, like, when you're rooting for a team, when you play for the Phillies and you're from California, you don't have any tie to them. You still kind of root for your old team. Oh, how's San Francisco doing? And I know this because Mike Trout does it.
Yeah.
He still roots for the Phillies. He wants the
That's
Phillies to win. Now, when he's playing against the Phillies, he wants to beat them. But when he's not playing against the Phillies, he wants them to win every time.
Sure.
And that's a real situation. When you do that and you're playing for your country, when you are representing your flag, all of a sudden everything changes. That's why the U.S. and Japan was able to do it. You know what I mean? Most of the time it's Cuba or Puerto Rico or San Salvador. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they have a couple of players that know how to play, and they play out of their minds for their country because they know that they become a stamp.
Listen, I'm all for it. I think the Olympics are not as you know what I think? I think the baseball classic is bigger than the Olympics right now. And nobody really watches the Olympics, but I guarantee you people will be watching that baseball, the baseball team.
They're doing it. They want to do it in the Olympics because the baseball classic worked.
Yeah. So
and I feel like this goes back to our own commercial. The people that run baseball try very hard to ruin it. This is why the new commissioner should pay attention to this.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Yeah, but yes, this is why they should pay attention to this. This is why I do so well in baseball, because I engage the youth. Right now, they don't have anything that ties the youth to baseball right now.
There's no
Nothing.
doubt about that.
It used to be the radio.
Yeah, it's an old man sport right now. That's what it is. It's for old people that can go somewhere for 3 hours and sit down and watch a game. That's what it is. That's what it's turned into, and that's kind of too bad. And
that's why it's too important. They could go the way of soccer a little bit here. Soccer owns the world in terms of a sport. Baseball could do this. Baseball could do. NFL football can't. NFL's got their own thing, but baseball could absolutely do this because everywhere in the world plays baseball.
I think that if baseball is going to pull this off, you maybe need to steal a page from the NHL. because when the NHL shut down operations for 2 weeks, when they had their players go and play in the Sochi Olympics, that was some of the highest rated games that they ever had televised and did major good for the sport. So, you know what? If they can find a way logistically to do this, and if the owners are going to not penalize players for wanting to represent their country in the Olympics or in the World Baseball Classic, give it a shot.
Yeah,
I'll watch just because I want to see what happens.
I'll definitely want to see our Major League Baseball team go against the Japanese Major League Baseball.
And you know how to make it worthwhile? You know how to make it worthwhile for the owners? Allow them to be the ones that make the revenue from the jerseys being sold
and
of the player.
And there was,
you know what? That's not a bad idea.
And there was something else too. They said the Olympic Committee would help pay for the insurance on the players, so that would also be a little bit of something there.
Okay.
Hey, CJ brought up hockey.
Willing to step up.
Yeah. CJ talked about hockey. Let's talk a little bit about hockey. Couple outdoor games. A couple really good games too. The Islanders against the Rangers was a classic. The Flyers were involved in a good game. CJ. This is going back to the roots of hockey, right? When the hockey clubs were before there were teams and they played outside. Got a bump in the ratings. I don't know if that will help hockey down the road or not, but it was nice to see. I saw a lot of views on these things.
I think it will, because of the fact that the Stadium Series was able to draw over 80,000 people for both nights that they had the outdoor games. And you know what? For the Devils Flyers, I found that game incredibly entertaining. And you know what? If the Flyers had goaltending, I think that game would have been a hell of a lot closer than it actually was, because the Flyers really gave Jersey everything that they could handle. And I tell you something, if it wasn't for the fact that they got hit with a couple of quick goals, that they dug themselves a hole they couldn't get out of. But you know what? The Flyers didn't quit, and they made it entertaining. During the course of the regular season, there are teams that would basically just go back to playing umbrella defense and just kill it and just say, screw it. We lost this game in the third period, and just let's play for Monday when we have to go to Dallas or wherever. But they played hard for 3 periods of hockey, and it was absolutely unbelievable. Although I feel like the wrong team won, but what are you going to do? So, But now that being said, the main event was the New York Rangers versus the New York Islanders, which was probably the best outdoor hockey game that I have seen probably within the last decade. Okay, you want to talk about if you want to talk about a comeback for the ages, if you want to talk about anybody who bought a ticket for that game getting their money's worth, they got their money's worth and then some. Because the New York Rangers put on a clinic in the third period, and the Islanders proved that they are all talk and no action. And Matt Barzal is so freaking overrated. I don't want to hear anything more about, Matt Barzal is so awesome. No, he's not. He's closet trash, and you guys, you Islander fans, need to accept that. All right? Your best player is Brock Nelson, and he's probably going to be dealt.
Speaking of how they've taken off, they're actually talking about getting a team in Houston as well, because of how hockey is actually taking off. Fertitta, I think, is talking about bringing a NHL team to the Houston area, which will be major because Houston's the 4th largest city, and so that could just bring in a lot.
Promote the Houston Aces from the WHL. Promote them to the NHL. Do it.
We'll see what happens. They tried that with the Whalers. It didn't work out. Well, it worked out, but they didn't get enough support to continue playing that way. So I could tell CJ's a big Islanders fan just the way he reacted there.
Oh yeah,
very interesting.
I hate the Rangers. I hate the Rangers so bad. I like Zibanejad. He's the best player in your team. Sorokin's gotten lucky here because he's been playing like crap all season long. You know what? I hate the Islanders too, so I don't really care who would have won that game. I wish that they would have blew up MetLife Stadium during that game. really,
Oh
for the
my
most
God.
part. But
Wow.
beyond that,
Listen, it's
beyond
not
that,
my
I,
fault
you know what?
guys
I
came
wish
in
all the
there.
Penguins were there too. I wish every Penguin was there too. I would have rooted for that tremendously in the process of that.
And what
But
about the
that all being
Blackhawks?
said,
You wish they were there too? The Blackhawks as well?
no,
this
we're playing
weekend?
them tonight. We're going to beat their asses tonight. So the
Right.
Blackhawks
Right.
stink right now. The NHL just likes to give them the
Yes.
first pick in the draft so
Yep.
that they could be the one team that actually wins every once in a while.
All
But
right. Okay.
eh,
I
that
had
being
so
said,
much. Go ahead, Pax. Go ahead.
yeah, that
Sorry.
being said, you know what? I cannot wait. I cannot wait. There is going to be a Flyers Rangers playoff series this year.
I
And
can't
that
wait.
that is going to be so
Oh,
much fun. That's going to be
mhm.
so much fun. I hate the Rangers. I really do. But when they play each other in the playoffs and when they actually have meaningful games, those games mean so much more for the NHL in general. That's like when Chicago and Detroit play great games.
Yeah.
When New York and Boston or Philadelphia and Boston play great games, when those teams are great, that's what makes the NHL great. Because you could say whatever you want to the West Coast. Vegas is good, Calgary is good, Edmonton is good. Yeah, up in Canada, up that way, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, they're trying to do whatever they can to finally win the cup again for Canada because Montreal stinks, Toronto stinks. They're not going to be able to do the NHL. But when Boston, New York, and Philadelphia are the three best teams in our conference, which is kind of close to it right now.
Yep.
I mean, they're not doing really well. The Flyers aren't doing really well right this very second, and they're going to have a fight to stay in the playoffs. But when those three teams are the best teams in the Eastern Conference, the NHL is so much better in general.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, you saw it as evidence of last year's Stanley Cup playoffs, right? The Boston Bruins completely dominated the regular season. Okay. They squared up against a Florida Panthers team that had to win their last 5 games to get in,
Yep.
plus get help.
All right.
And you know what? I'm sorry, but if I'm the first place team, the last team that I want to play
That's why President's Cup
is the
means
team
nothing.
that had to
The
scratch
President's
and
Cup
claw
means
just to
nothing.
get in.
The fact that you
Because
won
know
the most
what? They
games,
are going to
you
play you
stink.
hard.
Wow. Wow. All right, what a way to end the show, guys. Thanks for all. I mean, we got 2 hockey guys on here, and they just took it away and took us out. Thanks, guys. Thanks for Gene coming in, and of course, thank you, Sonia. Always a pleasure having you on, folks. Coming up right after this, NFC East will be coming up after this. We have Sonia. No, all right. Well, then it won't be coming up.
No, we're not.
All right, so they won't be coming up after this, but we have a lot of shows coming up after this. We have Sonia will be on. We'll have J&B talking shop. A lot of things happening over there. So stay with the Roku channel. Have a great night. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for all the likes and the loves and the views and the comments. We love having you.
CJ, stay on for a sec.